two superpowers are heading toward conflict. If World War III happens, it will likely start between the United States and China. Both countries say they do not want war, but both keep building their militaries. Tensions are rising in the South China Sea. So the question is, are we heading toward a global disaster, or is this all just posturing? Today we are breaking down exactly how the United States and China could start World War III. The most dangerous stretch of water on Earth is the 100 miles between mainland China and Taiwan. Every day it gets more crowded, with warships playing a game of chicken. And regularly, things get tense. Throughout 2024 and 2025, the South China Sea has seen repeated close calls between Chinese forces and regional navies. Collisions, confrontations, and near misses could spark something much bigger. The Taiwan Strait has been a powder keg for decades. Chinese fighter jets cross invisible lines meant to keep the peace. Taiwanese pilots scramble to intercept them. Chinese warships shadow every American vessel with aggressive tactics, turning routine patrols into high-stakes standoffs. The numbers are staggering. In May 2024 alone, China deployed 111 aircraft and 46 naval vessels around Taiwan. By August, Taiwan detected 464 Chinese military aircraft near the island, with at least 300 crossing into what used to be neutral airspace. But it was a February morning in 2024 that showed how fast things can spiral. Chinese Coast Guard vessels spotted a Taiwanese fishing boat near Kinmen Island. They gave chase, and the speedboat capsized. 2 fishermen drowned. For 48 hours, both sides mobilized additional vessels. The world held its breath while diplomats worked behind the scenes to prevent war. They barely managed to control a crisis that started with a fishing boat. In June 2024, tensions escalated again. Chinese sailors in tactical gear boarded a Philippine naval vessel. Armed with knives and axes, they smashed communications equipment and injured a Filipino Marine, severing his thumb. Pentagon officials debated whether this counted as an armed attack requiring U.S. retaliation. A pattern emerges. Chinese vessels close in. Regional forces respond. Radio chatter escalates. Ships maneuver dangerously, and suddenly there are casualties that demand retaliation. President Xi Jinping has made it clear why China cares so much about Taiwan. He says it will be reunified with mainland China, and he is not talking about peaceful negotiations. U.S. intelligence believes Xi has given the People's Liberation Army a deadline to take Taiwan by 2027. What seemed like military theater has become operational planning with a countdown timer. China claims 90% of the South China Sea based on maps from the 1940s. They back these claims with the world's largest Coast Guard fleet and the world's largest Navy by ship count. Their newest destroyers pack more firepower than most countries' entire navies. They have turned disputed reefs into unsinkable aircraft carriers, complete with runways and missile batteries. Turn on Chinese state television and you will see amphibious assault exercises that look suspiciously like Taiwan's coastline. Military parades showcase carrier-killer missiles specifically designed to sink American aircraft carriers. China is not just talking about reunification anymore, they are training for it. America finds itself trapped by a promise made decades ago. The Taiwan Relations Act commits the United States to provide Taiwan with defensive weapons. Its deliberately vague language felt reasonable in 1979, but it feels like a ticking bomb today. Officially, the United States recognizes China as the sole government and acknowledges Beijing's claim that Taiwan is part of China. But America treats Taiwan as a sovereign state in everything but name. When Taiwanese officials visit Washington, they cannot use the front entrance or display their flag. Yet these same officials coordinate billion-dollar arms deals with Pentagon generals. The contradiction reached peak absurdity in 2022 when Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan despite Chinese threats. Beijing responded by firing ballistic missiles over Taiwan and conducting military exercises that effectively blockaded the island. Yet officially, nothing changed. The military reality tells a different story. America has $22 billion in approved arms sales to Taiwan. American advisors train Taiwanese forces. United States warships transit the strait monthly. Any American president who lets Taiwan fall would face impeachment calls. But any president who fights for Taiwan risks nuclear war with China. Military analysts have gamed out how conflict would likely start. It does not begin with bombs. It could start with a phone call from a cargo ship captain who says, "The Chinese Navy is demanding to inspect our cargo. What should I do?" Chinese warships could complete a maritime blockade of Taiwan within 24 hours. A routine military exercise suddenly expands, and Chinese destroyers intercept all vessels approaching Taiwan. They do not call it an invasion. They call it a quarantine to prevent military supplies from reaching separatist forces. The squeeze would be devastating. Taiwan imports 98% of its energy and 70% of its food. Gas stations would run dry within days. Power plants would shut down. Hospitals would run low on supplies. The choice would be simple: surrender or starve. Military planners predict a U.S. Navy destroyer captain could face the most consequential decision since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Break through the blockade and risk starting World War III, or turn away and watch America abandon its allies. Once shooting starts, backing down becomes nearly impossible. Xi has told the Chinese people that reunification is inevitable. His legitimacy depends on it. Any American president who appears weak on China faces political destruction. Modern conflicts move at digital speed. From the first shot to full-scale war could take just 72 hours. Kennedy and Khrushchev had 13 days during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Today's leaders might have 13 hours. Here is how military analysts believe it could unfold. A destroyer captain receives orders to test a blockade. As his ship nears Chinese warships, something invisible happens. Somewhere outside Beijing, a cyber warfare officer could receive a green light. The destroyer's GPS suddenly shows false positions. Communications with the Pentagon go down. Radar displays phantom vessels. The invisible opening strike of World War III could begin this way. China's military doctrine calls for coordinated strikes across all domains: land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace. When they fight the United States in the water, they are simultaneously attacking in cyberspace and outer space. Back in the United States, most Americans would be asleep. Chinese cyber units have spent years infiltrating American infrastructure, planting digital vulnerabilities in thousands of electrical substations. As warning shots are fired, Chinese hackers could attack America's power grid. Remember when hackers shut down the Colonial Pipeline in 2021? Gas stations ran dry for days. Now imagine that across power plants in Texas, water facilities in California, and cell towers in the Midwest. All of them going dark simultaneously. Warning shots are fired. Within minutes, both sides are shooting to kill. As tracer rounds light up the Taiwan Strait, cyber attacks intensify. GPS satellites start broadcasting false coordinates. Communications satellites are jammed. Billion-dollar destroyers with advanced technology are reduced to fighting by sight alone. When Americans wake up and reach for their phones, nothing loads. The internet is down. The battlefield has crossed the Pacific. Think about how much of your life depends on technology. Your morning coffee, bought with a credit card, does not go through. Your commute guided by GPS. Your paycheck deposited electronically. In one morning, it all stops working. Wall Street tries to open, but the financial system is under assault. Bank accounts are being drained. Credit card networks crash. The Dow Jones drops thousands of points in the first hour. Every international bank transfer flows through the SWIFT system. When shooting starts, trillion-dollar transactions simply stop. Within 72 hours, every major country must choose sides. Japan realizes Chinese missiles can hit their base in Okinawa within 10 minutes. Australia invokes its defense treaty. Within 48 hours, the USS Ronald Reagan steams toward the Taiwan Strait, sailing into the crosshairs of carrier killer missiles. By hour 72, Chinese submarines outnumber American vessels 3-1 in Pacific waters. The logical response would be to cut China from SWIFT, like Russia after Ukraine. One problem: China processes $19 trillion annually through SWIFT, 5 times Russia's volume. Cutting China would trigger a global depression. China controls 80% of rare earth mineral processing. A Chinese embargo would cripple American defense production. China builds 40% of the world's commercial ships. If they stopped sailing to American ports, store shelves would empty within weeks. Then there is the nuclear dimension. China has about 410 nuclear warheads. America has over 5,200. But in nuclear war, having more weapons does not matter if your opponent only needs a few hits. One nuclear weapon hitting New York or Shanghai would trigger a global recession. What is dangerous is when both sides think they can contain nuclear escalation. Military scenarios predict Chinese submarines could sink a U.S. carrier, killing thousands of sailors. America retaliates. China authorizes a single nuclear strike against a U.S. base in Guam. America responds with a demonstration strike. Both sides think they are being restrained, that the other will back down. That is how nuclear weapons could get used. There is no way to win between nuclear superpowers. You cannot occupy China or America. You cannot force surrender when both have enough weapons to end civilization. According to the Atlantic Council's survey of over 350 security experts, 40% expect a world war within the next decade. 65% believe China will try to retake Taiwan by force within 10 years. Nearly half expect nuclear weapons to be used somewhere by 2035. The war would likely end through mutual exhaustion. Both countries would be economically devastated, politically unstable, and militarily weakened, but the damage would be permanent. Economic collapse, breakdown of trade, refugee flows, and environmental damage would affect every person on Earth for decades. World War III could begin with a single spark, a collision, a cyber attack, an automated system making the wrong decision. Once it starts, no one could escape its consequences. The question is not whether anyone could win, but whether humanity could survive it.